Have you wondered why the International Space Station is 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface? Coming up in this week's episode of Minute Friday. Before I start, Minute Friday is a weekly show on this channel where I talk about topics that I found interesting in a short period of 2 to 4 minutes. Unlike my other argument-driven videos, Minute Friday is information-driven, and hopefully this format is interesting and entertaining to you guys. So without further ado, I'm Lei, 3 minutes on the clock, let's talk about the International Space Station. First of all, the International Space Station costed us an estimated $100 billion to build. Therefore, everything about it is engineered with precision because anything that is designed differently could in the long term cost us hundreds of millions of dollars more. This then begs the question, why is the International Space Station 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface? What is the advantage of this particular orbit? To answer that question, let's start by limiting possibilities. According to the memorandum between NASA and the Russian Space Agency, Article 2, Section 2.3, the purpose of the International Space Station is to enable its users to take advantage of human ingenuity in connection with its low-gravity environment, the near-perfect vacuum of space, and the vantage point for observing the Earth and the rest of the universe. Specifically, the International Space Station is aspired to be a space laboratory, observatory, a transportation node, and possibly a staging base for future missions, among many other capabilities it needs to provide. In other words, whatever the orbit might be for the International Space Station, it needs to provide a comfortable living space for astronauts and scientists, and it needs to perform the aforementioned functions. Therefore, among many other things, the astronauts need to be safe. This hence eliminates the possibility of having an International Space Station above 700 kilometers altitude because the radiation level there is too high for human astronauts. Surrounding our Earth is the Van Allen belts that extend from 700 kilometers altitude to 60,000 kilometers altitude. Within the belt, it's filled with radiated particles which are dangerous for astronauts, but because of that, anything under 700 kilometers altitude is shielded from our sun's radiation, which make it a safe environment for astronauts to reside. Also, anything orbiting the Earth below 300 kilometers altitude will be subjected to significant atmospheric drag, meaning the air will be dragging the enormous International Space Station down. At an altitude of 400 kilometers, our International Space Station is already dropping to the Earth at the speed of around 2 kilometers per year, and reboosts are performed every year to bring it up. Therefore, we can't afford to have an International Space Station below 300 kilometers altitude either. This effectively limits its orbit height to anything between 300 kilometers to 700 kilometers. But this still doesn't give us a reason why 400 kilometers was chosen to be the final orbit of the International Space Station. The last piece of the puzzle is cost. When the International Space Station was initiated in 1998, cost of launching a rocket is extremely high, and to reach a higher orbit of 700 kilometers altitude means tens of millions of additional funding required per flight. Counting in the number of flights every year, it is a lot of money. So in conclusion, the choice of 400 kilometers altitude for the International Space Station is really made based on the technical constraints we have and the economic sustainability we're after. If we can accomplish all objectives at 400 kilometers altitude at a much lower cost, we just shouldn't build the International Space Station at 700 kilometers altitude. Hey, thanks for watching. I have something else to say. I think we're on the verge of a new era of space exploration. Lowering the price of rocket launch is not just a number, It opens up tremendous opportunities, just like the one I mentioned today. At the price SpaceX is launching rockets, perhaps we can build 10 International Space Stations in the sky with the same money. Or perhaps we can build a permanent base on Mars with the same money. What's even more amazing is that lowering the barrier of entry gives us tremendous room for imagination. Perhaps in the not-too-distant future, someone somewhere will think of something we have not think of and completely change the landscape of space industry. Alright, I'm Lei. I'll catch you guys next week.